Chapter 584. Lei Ren's performance shocked both his parents. Just 3 months ago, their son was still a good-for-nothing who needed bodyguards to follow him everywhere and only knew how to bully others with numbers. Now that 3 months had passed, their son could actually kill an opponent who was 3 levels above him in one strike. And it wasn't just an instant kill. He could even bully others with fewer people. The bandit leader was instantly killed by their son's attack. And the rest of the dragon bandits were all knocked to the ground. All of them were rolling and screaming. And their son's huge change was all because of Xianxia. The two of them only felt that they would never be able to repay Xianxia's kindness in their lives. It wasn't just them. Even Lei Ren himself was shocked. He had just mastered the first transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations and was still a little unfamiliar with it. But in the end it was so powerful with one strike. This was really out of his expectations. He couldn't help but look at his hands. After a moment he raised his head and looked at Immorse. Immorse, however, was somewhat resentful. "What are you waiting for? Wait for them to get up and beat you up?" Lei Ren's energy was completely exhausted after that strike. Although he still had stamina, his body was very weak. But Immorse had no intention of helping him. He could only grit his teeth and force his weak body to the side of a dragon bandit. No. Because the dragon bandit was struck by lightning energy, his cells were greatly damaged. He couldn't even get up. He looked at Lei Ren in horror. His desire to live made him beg for mercy. "Please, don't kill me. Please. I can give you anything. Just don't kill me." Lei Ren used his dragon claws to support himself on the ground. Looking at this person's eyes, he hesitated. Although he was the #1 good-for-nothing in 1,000 miles, he had killed people before. But he had ordered his servants to do it. Before today he had never killed anyone with his own hands. He had killed for just now, but he didn't look them in the eye. Now, facing this dragon bandit who had no strength to resist, looking at his desperate eyes at the last moment of his life, he couldn't bear it. Actually, his nature wasn't bad. It was just that his parents had spoiled him too much since he was young. If he liked something, he would just take it. If he didn't, he would snatch it. In his mind, all of this was natural. Now, facing the desperate eyes of a stranger before his death, the human compassion in his heart was finally awakened. The dragon claw on his right arm slowly lowered. He turned around and looked at Immorse. "Big brother, can you let him go?" Madame Lei, who was watching the live broadcast through the screen, turned her head to Lei Ming and said, "My son is so kind." However, Lei Ren shook his head helplessly. Having been on the battlefield before, he deeply understood that being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to one's comrades. He had seen how many people had killed their comrades because they had been too soft on the enemy. The battlefield was not a charity hall. There was no room for pity for the enemy. When would his foolish son understand this logic? At the same time, he also looked at Immorse. Would Senior Mo be merciful to his enemies? At the scene, Immorse looked at Lei Ren without any objections. The fact that Lei Ren could maintain a little bit of compassion meant that he had not lost his dragon nature. But Immorse had to let him know that mercy was not something that could be used casually. Thinking of this, he shrugged. "Do as you wish." With that, he turned around. At the same time, he moved his mind. Long Yen controlled the hand of the dragon bandit and pulled out a dagger from his waist. The dragon bandit was terrified. It was not him who was moving, but some force controlling his body to move. He shook his head repeatedly. No. However, his body had already gotten up uncontrollably and stabbed towards the dragon bandit. At this moment, Lei Ren turned his head to ask Immorse for instructions. When Madame Lei saw this, she immediately exclaimed, "No." Lei Ming also jumped to his feet in shock. Pooh! The specially refined dagger pierced Lei Ren's heart from the back with a thud. "Ah!" Lei Ren screamed and turned around. At the same time, he was surprised and angry. Why? He had already decided to let him go. Why did he have to harm him? In his anger, his body, which had been exhausted of energy, seemed to be filled with energy in an instant. The dragon claw instantly swept across the dragon bandit's head. Swish! The dragon bandit's head was directly cut into 5 pieces. Although Lei Ren was stabbed with the tenacious vitality of a giant dragon, as long as this degree of injury did not continue to worsen, it would not be life-threatening. Lei Ren did not wait for the headless body of the dragon bandit to fall to the ground and waved his dragon claws. Swish, 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 swish. The dragon bandit died instantly. In his anger, Lei Ren came to the side of another dragon bandit. And oh? In his terror, the dragon bandit uttered a sentence in English. Swish. What answered him was Lei Ren's crazy killing. Another dragon bandit. You made. Swish. What answered him was still Lei Ren's dragon claws. In just 5 minutes all 50 of the dragon bandits were killed. Only then did Lei Ren sit weakly among the corpses. He seemed to be a little delirious. Lei Ren pulled out the dagger from his back and his wound quickly healed. Lei Ren looked at Immerse in confusion. Why? Immerse replied, because you are enemies. There should be no mercy between enemies. To pity your enemy is to be cruel to yourself. Your mercy to the enemy may cause you to lose your life. Even your friends, your woman, and your parents may be harmed. Lei Ren's eyes seemed to have regained some clarity. Immerse knew that he had understood, so he did not say anything more. Let him think about it carefully. Madame Lei heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that her son was fine. But even so, her heart still ached when her son had been stabbed in the back with a dagger. Her son had probably never been scratched since he was young. When had he ever suffered such a serious injury? But Lei Ming saw the trick at this moment. Senior Emo, did it on purpose. Madame Lei was puzzled. On purpose? What do you mean? Lei Ming replied, those dragon bandits had clearly lost their ability to fight. How could they suddenly attack again? This is very strange. Also, my son's back was facing the dragon bandits, but Senior Emo was facing the dragon bandits. He clearly saw that the dragon bandits were about to attack my son, but he did not warn me. Madame Lei also thought of this and said, he did it to teach my son a lesson? Lei Ming replied, that's right. If it was just a reminder with my son's personality, he might forget after a few days. But Senior Emo made him hurt and bleed, so he will remember it even more clearly. He will never forget this bloody lesson in his life. Chapter 585. Lei Ming and Madame Lei discovered Immerse's intentions. This made the two of them extremely grateful to Immerse. If I were to teach him this, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do it in 1,000 or 2 years. But Mr. Emo only used a few seconds to make our son remember this. Madame Lei nodded. Senior Emo is really an expert. Lei Ming nodded as well. But at the same time he had a deeper understanding of Immerse. Senior Emo didn't seem to care about anything at all. But one must not underestimate his shrewdness because of this. Just from this incident alone one could see how shrewd he was. Because of this, Lei Ming became even more cautious of Immerse. With Senior Mo's shrewdness, if he had any ill intentions towards him, it was very likely that he would be able to see through it. Then the entire Lei family would be finished. Thinking of this, he immediately shouted, Men! Immediately send an order to the clansmen in Cloud Sea City to treat Senior Emo with extra respect. If anyone dares to have any ill intentions, they will be killed immediately. When the servant heard this, he couldn't help but shudder. Although the patriarch was very strict with the clansmen, he had never said that they would be killed. This time he actually gave such an order. It was obvious how much the patriarch respected Senior Emo. He had to be careful when dealing with Senior Emo in the future. At the scene, Immerse didn't move immediately. Instead he waited for Lei Ren's energy to fully recover before flying into the air with him. However, their flying speed wasn't fast. Immerse was waiting for Lei Ren to fully recover. Although his body had recovered, his mind hadn't. After all, it was his first time killing someone and he had been stabbed by the enemy when he had already planned to let the enemy go. He definitely wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. At this moment, Lei Ren was no longer as cheerful as he usually was. He followed behind Immerse in silence. Immerse didn't say much to him and waited for him to recover. Finally, on the second day, Lei Ren recovered a little. He began to take the initiative to speak. On the fourth day, Lei Ren had completely recovered. He was still as rich and imposing as before. He was still as profligate as before. But Immerse knew that he had changed. His mentality was much stronger than before. His experience in dealing with enemies was far more abundant than the average student of the academy. He had already experienced life and death and had experienced blood. He had already killed a few hundred star beasts. Compared to those students, he had already won at the starting line. Finally, Immerse's group arrived at Ocean of Clouds City. as expected of the main city of Cloud Sea Star. If it had to be described with a few words, then it would be grand, magnificent, 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 and extraordinary. From afar it looked like a path that led straight to the clouds. Flying along this path they passed through the clouds and saw the rolling sea of clouds. A huge city floated above the sea of clouds. This was the main city of Cloud Sea Planet. This reminded Immerse of the heavenly palace in Journey to the West that he had seen when he was young. They flew close to the clouds. When they got closer they noticed that the city was extremely huge. To what extent? It was so huge that even with Immerse's eyesight he couldn't see the end of it. There was already a butler from the Lei clan waiting for them at the city gate that was over 10 kilometers tall and 5 kilometers wide. When he saw Immerse and Lei Ren arrive he quickly flew over to welcome them. Then he brought Immerse all the way to the Water Moon Villa by a lake in the city. Every habitable planet had a powerful Star Lord. The place where the Star Lord lived was called the Star Lord Mansion. The Water Moon Villa by the lake wasn't far from the Star Lord Mansion. Could be said that this was the center of the entire city. Every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Moreover, this was a villa by the lake. It could be said that it was located in the center of the city and wasn't noisy. It was said that just the rent for the villa here was 50,000 dragon coins every month. Ordinary rich families couldn't afford it. Even if they could afford it, they didn't have the means to rent it. Actually, the Lei Ming clan was a little strained to afford it. After all, they had just taken over the two clans' business and needed cash flow. But they couldn't neglect Senior Mo. So they chose a place like this. Moreover, it was close to the academy. Their son could choose to stay in the academy and live here. He could also frequently receive Senior Mo's guidance. So they endured the pain of renting this place. This villa was very big, over 1,000 square meters. A swimming pool and a garden were all basic amenities. Immerse lived here and no one disturbed him. The next day the butler brought Lei Ren to the Cloud Sea Academy to register. Immerse and Lei Ren had originally set off a month before the start of school. But now school had already started for 3 months. This meant that Lei Ren had completely missed the opening ceremony and the 2 months of wilderness training. One had to know that the opening ceremony and the 2 months of wilderness training were very important in the eyes of many people. During the opening ceremony, the dragons' levels would be tested. They would be divided into classes according to their levels. If they came late, they would be assigned to the worst class, Class 0. Class 0 meant that they had nothing and couldn't do anything. So they were called Class 0. Class 0's teaching resources were much worse than the other classes. And the 2 months of wilderness training after school started was even more important. Many people called this the first lesson of school. Not only could they learn a lot, but they could also show their strength to their classmates and teachers. If the foundation here was good, it would be very convenient for them in the future. Lei Ren missed this and could only report to Class 0. The butler sent him to Class 0 and left the academy. Lei Ren entered the classroom. There weren't many people in the classroom, about 20 or so. He glanced around and saw that there were only empty seats at the back. He immediately went to the back and sat down. Many classes with bad morals had a tradition of bullying new students. Class 0 was no exception. Because their levels were relatively low during the level test, most of them were only rank 1 evolved dragons. So they were assigned here. The Tier 1 dragons all had mocking smiles on their faces at this moment. They came to Lei Ren's side and surrounded him. "You're the guy who didn't report for school and skipped 2 months of classes, right? You're quite arrogant," a yellow-haired dragon said. Lei Ren glanced at them and chuckled. "So what if I am?" The yellow-haired dragon also laughed. "If you are, kneel down and kowtow to us 3 times. When you see us in the future, call us Big Brother, understand?" Lei Ren also looked at these people with great interest. "What if I say no?" The yellow-haired dragon nodded. "Interesting. Then I'll tell you the answer now." Then he nodded to the people around him. The dragons immediately reached out and pressed Lei Ren's head. They wanted to hit Lei Ren's head on the table. However, before their hands could touch Lei Ren's hair, bang 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 bang, the 5 dragons smashed the windows and flew out of the window. They landed at the feet of the teacher who had just arrived for class. Chapter 586. Crash, crash, crash. The sound of 3 windows shattering could be heard. 5 figures flew out of the window. The other 17 students in the class were waiting to watch a good show. But when they saw this scene, they all stood up. They looked at Lei Ren in shock. Lei Ren was satisfied with their expressions and nodded. He stretched out his right hand and tapped the ground with his index finger. In this class, he pointed at himself with his thumb, I'm the boss from now on. All the students were stunned. They looked at the 5 students who had just gotten up. Among the 5 of them, the yellow-haired one was the highest. He was a rank 2 evolved dragon. He was the boss of the class. But now, someone took the lead and shouted, Boss. With someone taking the lead, the rest all followed suit. Boss. 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 Lei Ren nodded in satisfaction and waved his hand. Let's go. Everyone returned to their seats. At the same time, the Class Zero's instructor Yu Yanran was a little late for class. He was hurrying over. But at this moment there were a few rustling sounds. Then 5 figures flew out of the sky. They just happened to fly under her feet. She couldn't help but be stunned. These were the 5 tyrants of the class. What was going on today? But no matter what, these 5 guys must have caused trouble. Anger surged in her heart. You 5 are courting death. As she spoke, she waved her energy. The 5 guys were involuntarily sent flying hundreds of meters into the air. A moment later they screamed and fell from the sky. Boom, 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 boom. The 5 of them all crashed to the ground. In the distance, the teaching director saw the 5 students in the school uniform flying in the air. He shook his head helplessly. Instructor Yu was teaching the students a lesson again. Instructor Yu was young and beautiful. She was passionate about people. If you only saw her at first glance, she would definitely be a dream girl. But in the school, not a single instructor chased after her. Because her temper wasn't good and she was quite violent. Just like now, throwing students hundreds of meters into the air and then throwing them back down was nothing out of the ordinary for her. Who would dare to chase after such an instructor? But then again, only a teacher like her would be able to keep Class Zero in check. After Yu Yanran finished dealing with the yellow-haired guy and his gang, she stormed into the classroom. After the other guys got up, they didn't dare to complain and went to the classroom one after another. Everyone thought that the biggest bully in Class Zero was Huang Mao. Actually, very few people knew that Yu Yanran was the biggest bully in Class Zero. When Yu Yanran entered the classroom, the originally noisy classroom suddenly became solemn. Yu Yanran glanced at the dozen or so students in the classroom. In the end, his gaze fell on the newcomer Lei Ren. Who did it? She stared at Lei Ren intently. Lei Ren had been a playboy since he was young, so he didn't care about her. He said directly, they wanted to bully me, but in the end I bullied them instead. Is there a problem? Yu Yanran looked at Lei Ren and snorted coldly in her heart. It seemed that this little fellow was also a troublemaker. He came at the right time. I specialize in dealing with troublesome people. Thinking of this, she strode over to Lei Ren with her slender legs. It's not that there's a problem, it's that you're in trouble, big trouble. As she spoke, her right hand reached out to grab Lei Ren's shoulder. Lei Ren subconsciously dodged, easily dodging the claw. The students in the class were shocked. Teacher Yu was a rank 4 giant dragon. Moreover, she used a surprise attack. This was her usual method. Among the students in the class, whether male or female, which one of them hadn't suffered at her hands before? No, it wasn't a loss, but a miserable defeat. This newcomer was at most a rank 2 giant dragon. Moreover, he had caused such a big trouble the moment he arrived. When Teacher Yu was angry, even if she didn't use her full strength, she would at least use 30 to 50% of her strength. Even if it was 30 to 50% of her strength, the students wouldn't be able to withstand it. She didn't expect that this newcomer would be able to dodge it so easily. Yu Yanran was also slightly surprised. However, with her violent temper, this little surprise quickly turned into anger. Her right arm turned into a flaming dragon claw and chopped down at Lei Ren. Lei Ren's right arm also turned into a dragon claw with lightning coiling around it. He dodged the dragon claw in an instant. With a strange twist of his body, he appeared behind Yu Yanran. At the same time, his foot also kicked towards Yu Yanran's back without any hesitation. Yu Yanran had a violent temper, but Lei Ren didn't have a good temper either. Yu Yanran had never seen such a nimble movement before. She couldn't dodge at all. She only had time to turn around and cross her arms in front of her body. Bang, an impact force suddenly came. Yu Yanran immediately retreated. The tables and chairs in the classroom were knocked over. The group of students quickly jumped up to prevent themselves from being affected. At the same time, they looked at Lei Ren with extreme surprise. This guy's strength was so strong? Not to mention that he was late for school by a few months. The first lesson was to hit a student and a teacher. This was going to turn the sky upside down. Yu Yanran's pretty eyes were filled with anger as she roared, "Brat, you're courting death." After saying that, a fiery red energy condensed into a flaming giant hammer in her right hand. There were also dozens of thick and hard spikes on the hammer. This was Yu Yanran's weapon. Lei Ren didn't hold back. Since young, I was the one who bullied others. No one dared to bully me. How could I be bullied by a woman now? Above the right claw, streaks of lightning continuously crackled. In the previous 2 rounds, he had already felt the strength of this woman. She was only a rank 4 evolved dragon. And if she went all out, killing a rank 5 evolved dragon would be a cinch. How could he be afraid of this woman? When the 2 of them were at daggers drawn, an old man who looked to be in his 60s passed by the door. Seeing the situation inside, he helplessly shook his head. "Teacher you should also restrain your fiery temper." After saying that, an invisible long way brazenly spread out. Yu Yanran and Lei Ren were suppressed by this long way. The 2 of them suddenly felt an inexplicable chill from the bottom of their hearts. The energy in their hands also quickly disappeared. Yu Yanran turned to look at the old man and said, "Dean, I'm educating students. It's not good for you to suddenly intervene like this." The old man who was called the dean glanced at Lei Ren and then looked at Yu Yanran. He couldn't help but shake his head and said, "Education also needs to pay attention to the method. If you act rashly, it will only make their rebellious hearts stronger." After saying that, he no longer paid attention to Yu Yanran and slowly left. At this time, the dean's unspoken words were, "If I don't intervene, I'm afraid you will be beaten to death. That guy is not as simple as you see on the surface." Chapter 587. After the dean left, Yu Yanran raised her eyebrows, still unwilling to let go. She took 3 steps with her slender legs and arrived in front of Lei Ren. She stared at Lei Ren with fire in her eyes. An ordinary student would have panicked when being stared at by a teacher like this. But Lei Ren had been fighting with those star beast cubs in the forest for several months. Why would he be afraid of a woman's gaze? He raised his head and stared at the woman who was half a head taller than him. The atmosphere between the 2 was tense again. The students in the class were so scared that they didn't dare to speak. Even the yellow-haired guy and the other 4 were standing quietly by the wall, not daring to move. The 2 stared at each other for more than 10 seconds. Finally, Yu Yanran burst into laughter. "Ha! Good, I like you. What's your name?" Everyone was stunned. This turn of events was a bit sudden. The yellow-haired guy and the others also opened their eyes wide. It turned out that the teacher liked this. If they had known earlier, they would have done the same. They wouldn't have been scolded like dogs by the teacher now. However, they quickly rejected their own thoughts. The teacher liked this, but you had to have the strength to do so. Otherwise, the teacher would probably send you flying out of the window. How could they play this game? Lei Ren was also full of question marks. What's wrong with this woman? So strange. But since he knew that she was a teacher and her attitude was so good, if he continued to ignore her, it would be a bit unreasonable. He immediately replied, "Lei Ren." Yu Yanran couldn't help but laugh. "Lei Ren? This name is very shocking. From now on, you'll be my confidant. In this school, if anyone bullies you, just tell them my name, I'll protect you. Study hard, I have high hopes for you." Lei Ren's face showed a somewhat stiff smile. What confidant, what protect you? Why did it sound like the language of street gangsters? Could it be that this tutor was a gangster? Yu Yanran patted Lei Ren's shoulder and said, "Sit down and tell me, why did you come 3 months late?" Lei Ren smiled bitterly and shook his head. Does something happened at home? He didn't want to tell her that he had been training in the forest with Brother Imo for 4 months. Yu Yanran nodded, "And it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. 3 days later, it will be the mock exam for the first years of our academy." When the other students in the class heard the words mock exam, their expressions turned gloomy. The so-called test was because some people among the dragons had suggested that levels did not represent combat power. Therefore, when they entered the school after their grades were tested and they were divided into classes, there was also a mock exam. The classes that performed outstandingly in the mock exam would be able to obtain more resources. Although level didn't represent combat power 90% of the time, it did. During the entrance exam, Class 0 was the worst class in the entire first grade. Naturally, their combat strength was the weakest. What would they use to compete with the other classes in the mock exam? And if they didn't get a good ranking, the teaching resources they would receive would definitely be the worst. But these people did not include Lei Ren. Lei Ren glanced at these people and shook his head. I don't care if it's a mock test or a mock test, I'm going to get first place. All the students looked at Lei Ren in surprise. Getting first place in the mock exam was already bearable, but what the hell was a mock test? Yu Yanran patted Immerse's shoulder and gave him a thumbs up. Good. That's exactly what I want. PFF, many of the students present almost spat out. Instructor, do you think it's appropriate for an instructor to call himself, this old lady, in front of so many students? In the next 2 days, Class 0 was much more peaceful. Because Lei Ren had displayed extraordinary strength on his first day at the academy, the students of Class 0 naturally regarded him as their boss. Even that yellow-haired student regarded Lei Ren as his boss. At this moment, Immerse was not in a position to cause trouble. At the very least, it wouldn't be too late to cause trouble after he understood the entire planet and the entire Myriad Dragon starfield. From what he knew, the entire Myriad Dragon starfield had a total of 3,600 planets with life. It was divided into the east, the Eastern Imperial region 650 planets with life. The west, the Western Flame region 650 planets with life. The south, the Southern Ming region 650 planets with life. The north, the Big Dipper region 650 planets with life. The largest region was the Central Starfield, with a total of 999 planets with life. Some people might think, doesn't this add up to 3,599 planets with life? There's still one planet left. Immerse also wondered. However, he couldn't find any explanation on the internet. It seemed that 3,600 was an imaginary number. If you took it seriously, you would lose. While Immerse was studying the entire Myriad Dragon starfield, Xianxia Academy's first-year mock exam had begun. All first-year students had to participate in the mock exam. Everyone's student number would be used to draw lots. There were a total of 7 first-year classes. The students of Class 1 had the best foundation. In the first 23 matches, they had won all their matches. The second year's results were second. Class 5 was a dark horse ahead of Classes 3 and 4. The worst was of course Class 0. They had basically all failed in the previous matches. Instructor Yu Yanran shook her head repeatedly. Although she had a bad temper, the instructors of those classes didn't dare to make fun of her. However, when she saw the smiles on the instructors' faces, she couldn't help but feel angry. Naturally, she didn't treat the students in her class well. In fact, the students of Class 0 felt wronged in their hearts. Their levels were low during the test and now they were taught a lesson. Moreover, they had to bear the ridicule of the other classes. They were angry, but they didn't know who to vent it on. It wasn't until 11 o'clock that Lei Ren went on stage. His opponent was Class 2's Shui Miao. Shui Miao was a water-type dragon. Although she was only a rank 1 evolved dragon, her control of water-type energy had reached the point of perfection. It was said that her strength was definitely at the top of Class 2. In Class 2 she was the big sister. When she went on stage, the students of Class 2 shouted loudly. One had to know that every one of them was an evolved dragon. Their shouts were terrifying. If this had happened on Earth, this shout would probably have scared many people to the point of peeing their pants. When Lei Ren went on stage, the students of Class 0 were also shouting, but after all they were much weaker. Although Lei Ren had fought to a draw with the instructors had definitely held back. And when Lei Ren went against the students of other classes, they wouldn't hold back at all. Therefore the students of Class 0 were a little nervous. On the other hand, Yu Yanran's gaze swept across the instructors. She was already looking forward to it. She was waiting to watch a good show. Chapter 588. In the entire first grade, Class 0 was the only one who hadn't won a single match. The entire school was laughing at Class 0. Although none of the teachers laughed at Yu Yanran, they didn't think much of Class 0. At this moment, Lei Ren finally stepped onto the stage. Amidst the sparse cheers of the students below the stage, he faced Shui Miao, who was seated opposite him. Shui Miao was also a proud and arrogant person. Although she was only at the first rank, her battle strength had increased over the past 2 months. She could easily defeat opponents at the third rank. Many teachers were optimistic that she would take the top 3 in this mock exam. Shui Miao faced Lei Ren and sneered, "Let's begin." Bang! As soon as her voice fell, she was sent flying. She flew far away from the stage. Her blue dress was already covered in dust. The fairy who had been floating like an immortal was now directly smashed into the dust. Whoosh! The thousands of students in the audience were in an uproar. One move. This guy defeated Shui Miao in one move. Damn, he's too strong. It's too fast. It's really too fast. I didn't even see what happened. Lei Ren retracted his fist and looked at the incredulous Shui Miao who had just gotten up. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for letting me win." Shui Miao had never suffered such a great humiliation. Since she was young, she had been the apple of everyone's eye. Because of her beauty, she was the goddess in the hearts of all the boys. Wherever she went, she was doted on. But now she met such a guy who blasted her out of the stage with one punch. She was in such a sorry state. How could she bear it? This guy is so ruthless. He's really ruthless. Some students couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah, she's such a beautiful girl. How could he do that? Of course, they didn't know that this was all because of Wang Yi's training for Lei Ren. After a few months in the forest, the naive Lei Ren learned that many things in the world weren't as they seemed. Often the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. The same was true for women. Immorse also let Lei Ren know that once a battle started, there was only one enemy. To be merciful to the enemy was to be cruel to oneself and the people one cared about. Therefore, even if Lei Ren was facing a beautiful woman, he would not show any mercy when he attacked. Some of the mentors at the side were pleasantly surprised by Lei Ren's student. To be able to reach this stage at such a young age, it was truly not simple. However, the tutor of Class 2 was unhappy. Although his temper was not as bad as Yu Yanran's, it was definitely not good either. Originally, their Class 2's Shui Miao was their class's biggest hope of getting into the top 3 this time. In the end, he was punched out of the ring. How could he tolerate this? Referee, this brat launched a sneak attack. Shui Miao wasn't prepared at all. He said, barely suppressing his anger. When Yu Yanran saw this, she couldn't take it anymore. Not ready. She was the one who said it herself. If this isn't being prepared, then what is? Although the teacher of Class 2 had a bad temper, when she saw Yu Yanran's eyebrows furrow, she seemed to be about to flip out. He could only reluctantly swallow his anger. Not only did Yu Yanran have a bad temper, she also had a strong background. Not to mention a small tutor like him, even if the dean provoked Yu Yanran, as long as Yu Yanran said a word, the dean would probably suffer. Thinking of this, he flicked his sleeves and snorted coldly before returning to his seat. In the following battles, Lei Ren basically defeated his opponents with a single punch. He defeated the strongest of Class 3, Class 4, Class 5, Class 6 and Class 7 in a row. He advanced into the finals. In the finals, his opponent was Class 1's Poison Dragon, Du Faidu. This Du Faidu was very good at using poison. Previously, many experts were defeated by his poison. Many dragons' expressions changed when they heard about Du Faidu. Moreover, Du Faidu was the only rank 4 dragon among the first years. Facing such a guy, the other dragons could only flee. However, Lei Ren was not afraid at all. After all, he had learned how to deal with poison-type creatures from Immorse. Soon the competition began. Almost half of the students were cheering for Du Faidu. As for Lei Ren, the cheers were much softer. When the referee gestured for the start of the competition, Missouri sure arrived behind Du Faidu at lightning speed. Then he threw a punch. Bang! Du Faidu immediately flew to the side. Once again he flew out of the arena. When everyone present saw this scene, they were all shocked by Lei Ren's performance. A rank 2 dragon had instantly killed a rank 4 dragon. Moreover, it was Du Faidu who was the strongest among the first years and had the highest chance of winning first place. Just how strong was this guy? All of the instructors present were shocked. A moment later, a tutor said, "With the combat strength this guy displayed, I'm afraid he's even stronger than some of our tutors." After saying this, the tutor felt that it was a little ridiculous. In the academy, some genius students in the upper grades were stronger than many of the teachers. This was very normal. After all, most of the tutors in the academy were around rank 5 evolved dragons. But how could a normal first-year student be stronger than a fifth-rank instructor? Was this a F***king joke? Actually, they had never seen Lei Ren instantly kill a rank 5 bandit leader. That was a real instant kill. While he was still in shock, the dean said to a handsome male instructor with long hair beside him, "That's right. Tutor Jean, you're one of the most outstanding tutors in our academy. What do you think of this guy?" Tutor Jean nodded, "And he's a promising talent. Unfortunately, he's a little arrogant. If he's guided, he'll definitely become a great talent in the future." "Then Tutor Jean, are you interested in teaching him?" the dean asked. Tutor Jean waved his hand. "Forget it. You want me to snatch him from Tutor Yu? I don't have the guts." The dean laughed and said, "I'll talk to Tutor Yu. We can't let such a good seedling go to waste." Tutor Jean still shook his head. "Forget it. I saw this guy's hand movements and battle awareness. It's obvious that someone specially trained him. Since he has an expert behind him, we don't need to get involved. Maybe he just came to our academy to get a diploma." The dean pondered for a moment and said, "You're right. Then we won't get involved. But I don't know who trained him. To be able to train this guy like this, that person must be extraordinary. If there's a chance, I'd like to get to know him." Chapter 589. Lei Ren won first place and won a large amount of teaching resources for Class 0. According to the rules, every student in the class that won first place was given an individual cultivation room. These cultivation rooms were filled with all kinds of black technology related to cultivation. For example, the star brain could plan a cultivation plan according to the strength of each dragon's cells. There was also a device that could detect the gap between cells and calculate the energy capacity of each cell. There was also a variety of medicines distributed every month. This made the students of Class 0 go wild with joy. They didn't have the qualifications to have these things. It was Lei Ren who fought for them. Therefore, all the students were willing to call Lei Ren boss. Just as the 23 students of Class 0 were about to go wild with joy, Instructor Yu walked into the room. The other students hurriedly returned to their seats with solemn expressions. Only Lei Ren still had a smile on his face. Yu Yanran was very fond of Lei Ren. "Lei Ren, you've brought glory to our class today. You've made this teacher raise my head in front of those old guys. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to tell this teacher. As long as this teacher can help, I'll definitely help." The way she spoke didn't sound like a teacher at all. Instead, she sounded more like a gangster boss. Then he asked, "That's right. Judging from your fighting techniques and combat awareness, there should be another expert teaching you." Lei Ren nodded. "Yes." Yu Yanran was curious. "I'm very curious. What kind of expert can teach a genius like you? Are you interested in introducing us?" Lei Ren was about to speak when the teaching director came in. He was a bald old man. He said to Yu Yanran, "Teacher Yu, I have a few words to say to Lei Ren. Is it convenient now?" Yu Yanran nodded. "Of course it's convenient." The teaching director waved at Lei Ren and the two walked out of the classroom. Yu Yanran put on a righteous expression and didn't want to interfere. But as soon as the two walked out of the classroom, Yu Yanran's ears perked up and she quietly listened to their conversation. She heard the teaching director ask, "Student Lei Ren, right? Congratulations on getting first place in today's mock exam." Lei Ren nodded. "Yes." The teaching director asked again. "You should have an expert teaching you, right?" Lei Ren nodded again. At the same time, he admired Immorse even more. These mentors could tell that Big Brother Immo was an expert from their own skills. This showed how strong Big Brother Immo was. He nodded again. "Yes." The dean asked again, "Then can you introduce him to me? I admire him a lot." Just as he said this, Yu Yanran had already walked out of the classroom. Her face was filled with curiosity and anticipation. "I also want to meet those experts." Lei Ren pondered for a moment and said, "How about this? I'll go back today and ask if he's willing to meet you." The two instructors were speechless. "You look at me, I look at you." The expressions on their faces were somewhat strange. The instructors of the academy and especially the instructors of Ocean of Clouds Academy possessed an extremely high status in society. No matter how weak the instructor's strength was, so long as he said he was an instructor of Ocean of Clouds Academy, then everyone would feel deep veneration towards him. After all, the Ocean of Clouds Academy was the strongest academy on Cloud Sea Star. It was just like on Earth. When people heard that there was a professor from Peking University or Tsinghua University, they would definitely be knowledgeable and would naturally be respected. Many people on Cloud Sea Star took pride in knowing the instructors of Cloud Sea Academy. But this Lei Ren, 2 instructors from Ocean of Clouds Academy took the initiative to meet the person behind you, and you actually said something about going back and asking if he was willing to meet us. If the 2 of them knew that the expert behind Lei Ren was a super-evolved giant dragon, they probably wouldn't think this way. In the entire Cloud Sea Star, there weren't many super-evolved giant dragons. And there were only 70 or 80 super-evolved giant dragons like Immerse in the entire Cloud Sea Star. If Immerse revealed his true strength, there wouldn't be any force on Cloud Sea Star that wouldn't want to befriend Immerse. It was just that Immerse was more low-key and didn't want to reveal his true strength. Hearing Immerse say this, the 2 instructors could only nod. Alright then. Go back today and ask. We'll wait for your reply tomorrow morning. That afternoon, Lei Ren returned to the lakeside villa. With a happy expression he said, "Big brother Imo, guess what rank I got in today's mock exam?" Immerse couldn't be bothered with him. Go ahead. First. Lei Ren excitedly jumped onto the stone table in the courtyard and stretched out a finger. First. There are 7 classes in the entire grade, 150 people, and I'm first. Immerse continued to look down at the chess pieces on the table as he casually said, "Oh." Lei Ren asked doubtfully, "Big brother Imo, why don't you look excited that I got first? Why don't I call a few girls over to accompany you tonight?" Only then did Immerse raise his head and roll his eyes at Lei Ren. "I've taught you so much. If you can't even get first place in the first grade, wouldn't you be too useless?" Lei Ren shook his head speechlessly. "Can't you encourage me? You only know how to attack me. But what you said makes sense. How about this? My goal is to defeat all my opponents in the final exam in 2 months and get first place among all the students in the academy. What do you think?" Immerse sighed helplessly. Sigh, mud can't be applied to a wall. Lei Ren was speechless again. One had to know that the academy had a total of 6 grades. 1,000 students. Each grade had to study for 10 years before they could move on to the next grade. The highest grade, the 6th grade, had already studied in the academy for more than 50 years. Their strength also far exceeded that of the first grade students. Some of the students' strength had even surpassed some of the teachers. Now that Lei Ren had just entered the academy and said that he wanted to get first place in the entire academy, Immerse was actually not satisfied. "Big brother Imo, you can't let me challenge the teachers, right?" This time, Immerse placed a chess piece on the board and said, "Exactly." But Lei Ren was even more surprised. Hey, big brother Imo, I know that I have potential, I know that I'm very awesome. But you want me, a freshman who just entered the academy, to challenge the teachers? Isn't this too ridiculous?" Immerse chuckled. "With an expert like me teaching you, if you don't even have the strength to defeat the teachers in your academy, then how useless are you?" "Lei Ren," Immerse continued, "I want you to be able to challenge all the teachers in the final exam in 2 months. Including your academy's teaching director, who is a level 10 evolved dragon." Lei Ren spat out. The teaching director was a level 10 dragon, the same level as his father. You want me to challenge him in 2 months' time? What kind of joke was this? Chapter 590. Seeing that Lei Ren did not believe him, Immerse shook his head and said, "I will pass the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations to you. You will learn it within 2 months. And as you continue to practice the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, your level should be able to rise by 1 within 2 months. At that time, wouldn't it be easy for you, who is at the 3rd stage, to challenge the 10th stage dean?" Lei Ren spat out once again. "A 3rd stage challenge a 10th stage? A 7th stage challenge? Only you can say that." However, after witnessing the power of the first transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, he was rather confident in the power of the second transformation. Perhaps he could really challenge the dean at that time. Seeing that Wang Yi did not seem to be joking, the gaze in his eyes became fiery. "Alright, from tomorrow onwards my goal is to challenge the dean." Immerse shook his head. "What do you mean from tomorrow onwards, from today onwards?" Lei Ren could not help but smile bitterly. "Big brother Imo, I just got first place, can't you let me relax?" I'll call a few girls over tonight, you can also relax. This way everyone will be happy. Immorse glared at Lei Ren. Lei Ren laughed awkwardly and did not dare to say anything else. Immorse immediately passed the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon to Lei Ren. If he wanted to learn the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon, he would need the cooperation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations. Thus, Immorse passed the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations to Lei Ren. Whether it was a cultivation technique or a skill, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations was a collection of the strengths of everyone. It was the easiest to understand, the easiest to practice, and the most powerful cultivation technique and skill. Many people could understand it at a glance, but almost no one dared to practice it. This was because many of the energy circulation routes in the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations were the opposite of what they had learned in the past. For example, light was an energy storage. What they had learned in the past was to store the energy in the back or the energy sea in the abdomen. However, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations required energy to be stored in every cell. For example, the method of releasing energy that they had learned in the past was to circulate it from the dantian, through several veins and finally gather in the hands. However, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations required the transfer of energy between cells. It's like how sound travels at a different speed in air than it does in solid objects. Solid objects travel faster. For the same reason, the transmission between the cells was faster than the transmission between the meridians that seemed to be unobstructed. This knowledge completely overturned the understanding of the dragons. Therefore, even if the average giant dragon saw it, they would think that it was just a made-up secret manual. If not for Lei Ren's complete trust in Immorse, he would not have dared to practice this Thunder Dragon's 9 transformations. Lei Ren was extremely excited. Thank you, brother. After saying that, he hurried back to his room to practice. But before he left, he suddenly remembered something. He then turned around and said, Big brother Imo, when I was fighting today, both teacher Yu and the teaching director could tell that I had an expert guiding me from behind. That's why they wanted to meet you. Immorse pretended to be in a difficult position. I'm used to being free and unfettered, so I don't want to know too many people. The more people you know, the more trouble there will be. Lei Ren saw that Immorse was in a difficult position and said, Big brother Imo, if you're in a difficult position, I'll tell them that you don't want to meet them. Our teacher Yu is a young and beautiful woman. It's a pity that you don't want to meet them. Immorse pondered for a moment and said, I'm used to being free and unfettered, so I don't want to know too many people. But since they're your teachers, it wouldn't be appropriate if I don't go. How about this? You tell them that I'm willing to meet them tomorrow and see when they have the time to come here. Lei Ren chuckled. Indeed, even heroes have a weakness for beauties. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with Immorse asking the two of them to come here. One must know that Big Brother Imo was a rank 4 super-evolved giant dragon. But this was only on the surface. Actually, his father had told him that Big Brother Mo's strength had probably reached the level of an ancient giant dragon. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill more than 300 people from the two family in one move. No matter how high the status of these two teachers was, they were nothing in front of an ancient giant dragon. For Big Brother Imo to meet them was the greatest honor of their lives. Seeing that it was getting late, the two of them returned to their rooms to rest. When it was almost 12 o'clock at night, Immorse said, System, sign in. The system's voice sounded frowny face. Special event sign in successful. Sign in event. Disciple defeated all the students of the academy and won first place in the year. Sign in reward. Water Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Poison Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Earth Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Ice Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Wood Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. This. Immorse was greatly surprised. He actually received so many 9 transformations with different attributes in one sign-in. Previously, the 9th transformation of the Thunder Dragon's 9 transformations had already shocked him. He did not expect the system to produce so many 9 transformations with different attributes. It seemed that these attributes were the attributes of the opponents that Lei Ren defeated today. With so many cultivation methods, the only one missing was the Golden Dragon's 9 transformations. Moreover, there was a special attribute of the Poison Dragon's 9 transformations. He wondered how terrifying it would be if he cultivated the Poison Dragon's 9 transformations to a certain extent. However, Immortal currently only had 3 attributes in his body: ice, fire and lightning. Therefore he could only cultivate the 9 transformations of the ice, fire and lightning attributes. Thinking of this, he immediately entered Earth's space. With a thought, he mastered the 9 transformations of the ice and fire attributes. After mastering it, he practiced it in Earth's space. In the end, the 9th transformation of the ice dragon's 9 transformations froze the entire space into a solid layer of ice. The 9th transformation of the fire dragon's 9 transformations turned the entire Earth's space into sticky magma. In other words, at least with a single strike, it could reach the level of destroying Earth. Following that, Immortal learned the other attributes. Although he did not have any other attributes, he had already made a plan. He would think of a way to become a teacher of the academy and take in a group of students. When the time came, the knowledge of the 9 transformations would be useful. He would nurture these students and let them slaughter those dragons. Then there would be no need for him to make a move at all. His dragon slaying points would continue to increase. If someone could go to the battlefield, that would be even better. One had to know that in the current interstellar war, the number of dragons participating in the war could easily reach millions. Tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dragons could be killed in a single battle. Wouldn't that be great? Lei Ren returned to the academy and told the dean and Yu Yenran about Immortal's words. The two of them were slightly angry. Especially Yu Yenran, who directly scolded. "I am a teacher of the Cloud Sea Academy. You want me to visit him? You're giving him face." Chapter 591. When Yu Yenran heard that she was going to pay him a visit, she was furious. "You want me to pay him a visit personally? That's giving him face." The dean was also a little uncomfortable. However, the dean was much calmer. After thinking about it, he said to Lei Ren, "If that's the case, then I'll be free tomorrow afternoon after school. Tell him that I'll pay him a visit then." With the dean's experience, many experts had some eccentricities. There were also many experts who were difficult to get close to. If the person behind Lei Ren was a truly powerful expert, then it was reasonable for him to ask him to pay him a visit. So the next afternoon, the dean came to the lakeside villa. Seeing the environment here, he was first amazed. Even if he was the dean of the academy, he couldn't afford to live here. He couldn't even afford to rent it. The rent of 50,000 dragon coins a month was not something he could afford. It seemed that Lei Ren's family had a strong background and was powerful enough. After entering the door, Immortal was studying war chess in the courtyard. The dean of teaching looked Immortal up and down a few times, his face full of surprise. "Lei Ren, are you talking about this, mister?" Lei Ren nodded. "That's right, what's wrong?" The dean frowned. He didn't finish his sentence. But anyone could tell that he meant that Immortal didn't look like an expert. Immortal also looked away from the chessboard and looked at the dean. The dean cupped his hands at Immortal. "You must be Mr. Mo, you've taught a good disciple." Immortal smiled. "I was just bored, so I taught him casually." Then the two chatted for about half an hour. In this half an hour, the dean talked about a lot of professional knowledge about cultivation. If it was in the past, Immortal wouldn't know anything about this knowledge. After all, he didn't need to cultivate. But now, after mastering the various 9 dragon transformations, he could be said to have a lot of knowledge about cultivation at his fingertips. Sometimes, the cultivation methods he talked about were more effective than traditional cultivation methods. The dean of teaching was stunned when he heard that. He couldn't help but look at Immortal up and down again. This person was indeed an expert. Not only was he well versed in all kinds of knowledge regarding the lightning attribute, he was also quite knowledgeable about the other attributes. Moreover, many of his viewpoints were very novel. Although Shifeng had not verified Lei Ren's theory, just by looking at Lei Ren, a Tier 2 evolved dragon had killed a Tier 4 super evolved dragon. To be able to teach such a disciple, it was clear that Mr. Mo's theoretical knowledge was far superior to many of the academy's instructors. When they were about to leave, the dean of teaching asked, "Mr. Mo, if you have the chance, then I wonder if you're willing to become an instructor in our academy?" Immortal pondered for a moment before replying. "Since I have nothing to do anyway, it doesn't matter if I go take a look." The dean nodded. "Then I'll go back and discuss it with the dean today." Immortal nodded to send the guests off. The next day was Wednesday, and the academy's instructors had a routine meeting. Other than a few instructors with no duties, The rest of the instructors had to participate. At 8:30 the meeting began, but not everyone had arrived yet. The dean cleared his throat and said, "Then let's begin the meeting." One of the instructors said, "Dean, Teacher Jean hasn't arrived yet." The dean said calmly, "Today's meeting is to inform everyone that Teacher Jean has left our academy to take up a post at Proxima Centauri Academy." All the instructors were quite surprised. Usually, even if an instructor left, it would be after the end of the semester. It was rare for an instructor to leave while still teaching yesterday. The dean's tone was very calm, but the instructors seemed to be able to hear the dean's anger behind this calm tone. The dean continued without hesitation, "You can say that Proxima Centauri Academy came to our academy to poach people and successfully poached Teacher Jean Pontu. We don't have as good a treatment as them, and our academy isn't as famous as Proxima Centauri Academy. He can gain more attention and benefits there." All the instructors fell silent. The dean continued, "Actually, I understand Teacher Jin's choice very well. Proxima Centauri Academy's conditions are much better than ours, and their treatment is better in all aspects. They are also better than our academy in terms of fame and popularity. It's understandable that Teacher Jean chose them. If it were me, I would also choose them." But he suddenly left in the middle of teaching this semester. Who's going to teach their 6th grade class 1? The 6th grade is the graduating class, and these few years are very important to them. It's not something that just anyone can take over. And in such a hurry, it's very difficult for us to find a suitable instructor. At this point, the dean took a deep breath. He continued, "Even if he can't wait until the end of this semester, he should at least wait until we find a suitable instructor to take over their 6th grade class 1. He called me at 8 this morning and said that he won't be coming in the future. He asked me to find time to get someone to pay him this month's salary." At the end of the dean's words, there was obvious anger in his tone. His words also turned into 2 words, "Huh." All the instructors looked at the dean. The dean had always been a very kind person, and he was also a person of few words. But today he said so much in one breath and even said he. It was obvious that the dean was really angry. Yuyenran was instantly furious. Running away in the middle of the semester, and he still has the face to ask for salary? Give him a D***. The other instructors also shook their heads. This is too much. How are we going to find a suitable instructor in such a hurry? The 6th grade class 1 is the most outstanding class in the entire academy. Every one of them is a genius, and they're all proud and arrogant people. If we suddenly change a new instructor, I'm afraid we won't be able to control them at all." After a while, the discussion gradually died down. The instructors all fell silent. Some people shook their heads and sighed. Some people secretly cursed Jean Pontu for being shameless. For his own interests, he didn't care about the interests of the academy and the students at all. Such a person didn't deserve to be an instructor. At this time, an instructor surnamed Bing said, "I have a candidate. I have a candidate in mind. He's a recent graduate from Nanming Academy." When he said this, the instructors were a little surprised. Nanming Academy? It's actually Nanming Academy. There were 650 planets with life in the entire Nanming star zone. Among them, the main planet was Nanming Star. And the strongest academy on Nanming Star Zone was Nanming Academy. At the same time, Nanming Academy was also the strongest academy in the entire Nanming Star Zone. The top students who graduated from this academy were basically fought over by the entire Nanming Star Zone. The dean asked, "He's willing to come to our small Yunhai Academy." Chapter 592. The dean asked, "He's willing to come to a small place like ours?" The instructor nodded. Although many forces are fighting for him, he feels that it's best to start from the bottom. It's the best way to train a dragon. These days he's been looking for such an opportunity. If he can come to our school to teach, he'll be very happy. The dean nodded. "Okay, then tell him to come over as soon as possible. I want to meet him." The instructor nodded. "Okay, I think he can come tomorrow." At this time the dean also spoke. "I do know an expert who can give it a try." Everyone turned their heads and looked at the dean. The dean asked, "Who?" The dean said, "Lei Ren won first place in the freshman mock exam." At that time, everyone thought that he had an expert guiding him. "I went to see that expert yesterday." The dean asked, "How was it?" The dean said. He's indeed an expert. Not only is he familiar with thunder attribute techniques, but he's also very knowledgeable about water, fire, earth, wood, ice, and even poison attribute cultivation knowledge. All the instructors were surprised. That many. It was already very impressive for an ordinary instructor to master cultivation knowledge of 3 attributes. There were probably very few who could master 4 attributes in the entire star field. How could he master cultivation knowledge of 7 attributes? That was too exaggerated. The dean said in surprise, master so many attributes? Then he must be an incredible expert. Did he ask him if he was willing to teach? The dean nodded. I asked him. He said that since he had nothing to do, it should be possible. And most importantly, he should be able to control the arrogant 6th year class 1. Everyone should have seen how arrogant Lei Ren is during the mock exam. Instructor, you should know best. But when I visited him yesterday, Lei Ren was very obedient in front of him. Lei Ren did whatever he said. So I think he should have no problem controlling those arrogant geniuses of 6th year class 1. The dean's eyes lit up. It was one thing to see if an instructor was outstanding and knowledgeable. On the other hand, it was also to see if he could control the students. If he only had profound knowledge, but the students didn't listen to him at all, then what was the point of teaching? Teacher Bing frowned slightly when he saw this. Although the person he recommended was a top student at Nanming Academy, he had to drop out because he had committed a crime. Because he had committed a crime and didn't even have a graduation certificate, it was very difficult for him to find another job. No matter how strong you are, you won't even have the chance to show it. Now that he suddenly had this opportunity, he would be the one to teach the students. If they were taught well, graduation certificates and crimes wouldn't be a problem. After all, teaching qualifications were reviewed once every 5 years. There were still 3 years left before the trial. In these 3 years, he could always find a way to get his graduation certificate while minimizing the impact of his crime. What's more, if he could achieve something in these 3 years, nothing else mattered. But he didn't expect the dean to appear out of nowhere. This was King ridiculous. But there was no other way. The dean had always trusted the teaching director. Moreover, the dean was a good judge of character. Therefore he couldn't say anything. She only hoped that the person she had recommended, who was her friend's son, would perform better tomorrow. The next day, Immorse slept until almost 11 o'clock before he woke up. After all, he had played too late with Happy last night. After getting up, he looked at the time. He was a little speechless. Sigh. After shaking his head, he began to wash up and eat. When he arrived at the academy, it was almost 11:40. In the academy, the dean was so anxious that he scratched his head. When he finally saw Immorse arrive, he quickly said to Immorse, Mr. Immo, let's go see the dean now. If we're any later, he might have already gotten off work. Although he didn't say it explicitly, the meaning behind his words was that Immorse came too late. Immorse also scratched his head and said, I'm sorry. I played chess too late last night, so I woke up late tonight. Soon the two of them arrived at the dean's office. The dean apologized repeatedly. Dean, I'm sorry. Mr. Immo had something to do in the morning, so he came a little late. The dean smiled and nodded, then said, It's okay. Our new instructor has already taken office. I think he taught quite well. As he spoke, he pointed at the air screen in front of him. Immorse and the dean looked at the air screen. On the air screen, a young man was teaching the students below the stage. He spoke in simple terms. It was obvious that he was very skilled. The students in the classroom also listened very seriously. The dean shook his head helplessly. In fact, he felt that with Immorse's level, he would definitely teach better than this young man. However, the dean hated people with a poor sense of time the most. He was 3 hours late for an interview. Who would hire such a person? Immorse also felt a little helpless. Happy was really a femme fatale. If it weren't for her, how could he have played until so late? How could he have woken up so late? However, he missed this opportunity. He would think of another way in the future. Thinking of this, Immorse also shook his head helplessly. Sorry to disturb you. As he spoke, he turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment on the screen, the new instructor who was teaching suddenly disappeared under his feet. A circular black hole actually appeared. The next moment, the instructor fell directly into the black hole. He instantly disappeared. A moment later, a black hole suddenly appeared on the ceiling. The instructor fell directly out of the black hole. crack he fell directly on the lecture table. The lecture table was smashed into pieces. Then, a vine suddenly stretched out from the ground and wrapped around the instructor. Then it swung with force. The instructor was thrown far out of the window. It turned out that there were students with spatial attributes in class 6-1. They also heard from somewhere about the reason why Instructor Jean left. This made them quite disappointed in the academy's instructors. They thought that the instructors were the engineers of their souls who taught and educated people. They didn't expect that these instructors were all despicable people who would do anything for benefits. Therefore, the moment this new instructor entered, he was tricked by them. The dean's eyes lit up when he saw this. He stopped Immorse. Then he said to the dean, "Dean, why is this new instructor?" Ahem. The dean coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Then he looked at Immorse and said, "Then let's talk about this Mr. Mo teaching." The dean wanted to laugh in his heart, but he didn't dare to. He turned to Immorse and said, "Mr. Mo, please take a seat." They talked about some cultivation problems with Immorse. Chapter 593. The dean and Immorse talked about some cultivation problems. The more the dean talked, the brighter his eyes became. He thought that the dean was exaggerating. No one could master the cultivation knowledge of 6 attributes at the same time. After all, the cultivation knowledge of each attribute was extremely complicated and varied. Ordinary people were already very talented if they could master one attribute in a short time. It was impossible to master 6 attributes no matter how talented they were. However, reality proved that Mr. Mo had done it. He really mastered the cultivation knowledge of 6 attributes perfectly. He even mastered more than the dean in many areas. The dean nodded secretly. Although he had talked to Immorse once before, it seemed that every time he heard Immorse talk about cultivation he would gain something. However, the dean was in a dilemma. "Mr. Mo, can you control these students?" Immorse smiled. "Remove the can." The dean was stunned for a moment before he reacted. "So, Mr. Mo is very confident?" Immorse smiled. "Not very, but too confident." The dean heard this and looked at the dean. This Mr. Mo's professional knowledge was indeed very strong. But why did his words seem a little out of tune? However, since he had already come this far, he could only let him give it a try. "Dean, take Mr. Mo to give it a try first." The dean nodded. "Okay." Then he took Immorse to the door of class 6-1. At this moment, the new instructor had already been taken away. As an instructor, it was indeed tragic to be trampled by a student like that. In the classroom, the students were in a mess. Some were dancing with excitement while others were lying on the table and laughing. There was a wood attribute dragon that directly used energy to condense many flowers, and the entire classroom became a sea of flowers. The dean asked Immorse next to him, "Mr. Mo, are you ready?" Before he finished speaking, Immorse had already walked into the classroom. In the classroom, the students who were in the midst of celebrating were stunned. They looked at Immorse. Immorse had a smile on his face. "Students, I am your new instructor. You can call me Instructor Mo." The students below the stage looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with excitement. A new round of pranks was about to begin. However, just as they made up their minds, they suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill in their hearts. They looked up in horror at the new instructor on the podium. The teacher's face did not change at all. He was still looking at them with a harmless smile. But at this moment, this smile seemed like the smile of a devil to them. He was like a demon that had just crawled out of hell, as if he could tear them apart in the next moment. One had to know that Immorse was now a rank 5 supervolved giant dragon. Not to mention that he often went to the dragon cave to cultivate Long Wei. Even Long Wei, a rank 5 supervolved colossal dragon, was far from what these rank 4, rank 5 and rank 6 students could handle. When Immorse saw that the students had quieted down, he smiled and said, "Aren't you going to greet Mentor Immo?" While the students were trembling in fear, they spoke out one after another. "Hello, instructor." Outside the door, the dean heard this and heaved a sigh of relief. In the dean's office, when the dean saw this scene, he also looked at Immorse in surprise. How did Immorse make these students listen to him? Could it be Long Wei? But that could only be done by a supervolved colossal dragon Long Wei. Could it be that this ordinary-looking Mr. Immo had actually become a super-evolved colossal dragon? Thinking of this, the dean's gaze was fixed on Immorse on the screen. In the entire academy, only the dean was a super-evolved colossal dragon. If they could have another super-evolved colossal dragon as their instructor, then the Cloud Sea Academy would at least be promoted from a 5th-rate academy to a 4th-rate academy. The Cloud Sea Academy was the best academy on the Cloud Sea Star. But in the entire Nanming region, it was at most a 3rd-rate academy. In the entire 10,000 Dragon Star region, it would be difficult to even become a 5th-rate academy. This instructor Mo could control these students, but it would depend on how well he taught. If he could only control the students and not pass on his knowledge, then he couldn't be considered a good instructor. Mo sure looked at these students and pointed at the only girl in the class who didn't make a fuss when he came in. He said, What's your name?" The girl quickly stood up and answered with fear. I'm called Mu Wanqing." She was usually a little timid and the students in the class all looked down on her. So she had always felt inferior. Just now, when she was suppressed by Mo Sure and Long Wei, she was even more frightened. Mo Sure said, "When I came in, you were the only one who didn't make a fuss. How about this? I'll reward you with a breakthrough right away. How about it?" Mu Wanqing was at a loss. Or it could be said that she was too frightened and didn't realize what Mo Sure was saying. When the other students heard Mo Sure's words, they all looked at Mu Wanqing in surprise and then looked at Mo Sure. Mo Sure ignored them and said to Mu Wanqing, "Now, cultivate by yourself and let me see." Mu Wanqing quickly did as she was told. 5 minutes later, she finished cultivating. She lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Mentor, I finished cultivating." Mo Sure said, "Cultivate again. When the energy runs through the 2nd cycle, go through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. When the 4th cycle, go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint. Everything else remains the same." Mu Wanqing looked at Mo Sure in surprise. When she was cultivating with those mentors, they said that her wood attribute energy must never go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would go crazy. Why did this mentor let her energy go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint? When the rest of the students in the class saw this, they all frowned slightly. Because when they cultivated, their energy never went through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. The mentors said that the Dragon's Pine Acupoint was a useless acupoint. In the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution of giant dragons, this acupoint had been slowly abandoned. It didn't matter whether there was one or not. So when they cultivated, their energy never went through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. Why did this new mentor let them go through this acupoint as soon as they came in? Did he know how to teach them? However, under Mo Sure's abuse of power just now, none of these students dared to refute. Outside the classroom, the Dean of Teaching was also slightly stunned when he heard Mo Sure's words. How to go through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. This didn't make sense. He quickly turned around and walked towards the classroom door. If something happened to the students while they were cultivating, how would he explain it to the parents? However, after taking 2 steps, he stopped again. Thinking of how Lei Ren was trained to such a state, he thought that this mentor Mo should have some ability. In the dean's office, when the dean saw this scene, although he was puzzled, he was not anxious. This newcomer, Teacher Mo, should have some skills. Chapter 594. Cloud Sea Academy, Class 6-1. The girl with low self-esteem Mu Wanqing was cultivating. She didn't follow the usual energy circulation route. Instead, she followed the circulation route that Mo Sure had just mentioned. The first 2 cycles were normal. During the 3rd cycle, the energy passed through the Dragon Spine Acupoint. During the 4th cycle, the energy passed through the Dragon Wing Acupoint. When her energy had just passed through the Dragon Wing Acupoint, she suddenly felt that all the meridians in her body seemed to have become much smoother. These meridians seemed to be much thicker than before. She hurriedly increased the energy output. 5 minutes later, the aura on her body suddenly rose. A huge wave of air spread out in all directions. It blew over the tables and chairs, causing the nearby students to sway. A moment later, the wave of air receded. Mu Wanqing opened her eyes. She was in disbelief and pleasant surprise. She looked at Mo Sure and said, "Instructor, I broke through and became a rank 4 evolved dragon." After saying that, she still couldn't believe it. Previously, she felt that it would be very difficult for her to break through again. Even if she could break through, it would probably take more than 100 years. Not only did she feel that way, but the instructors in the academy also felt the same way. That was why she had always felt inferior. How could Instructor Mo just say a few words and she broke through? Outside the door, the dean was stunned when he heard this. A few words of guidance and she broke through immediately? This was simply unheard of. Even the instructors of the first-rate schools in the Myriad Dragon Star region couldn't do this. When the dean saw this scene, his face revealed his usual shocked expression. Just 2 simple acupoints allowed a student to break through immediately? No one would believe it. When dragons generally needed dozens or hundreds of years to break through, it was simply a joke to teach someone to break through in 5 minutes. Incredible, incredible, the dean muttered to himself. This Instructor Mo must stay no matter what. He was definitely an expert. An expert who was much stronger than him. Of course, it was impossible for such an expert to stay in a small place like the Cloud Sea Academy. But even if he only stayed for a period of time, it would be a great fortune for the Cloud Sea Academy. Immortal's move instantly stunned all the students present. Mu Wanqing lowered her head and said softly, "Mentor, thank you." Although his voice was very soft, it could be heard that he was grateful from the bottom of his heart. At this time, a tall and muscular student stood up and said in a coarse voice, "Let's go. Mentor Mo, my name is Tuching Earth City. Please give me some advice. Ever since I entered the academy, I haven't broken through." When he said this, his voice was filled with excitement. Generally, it would take around 100 years for an evolved colossal dragon to break through. However, all those who were able to enter the academy were geniuses. After he entered Ocean of Clouds Academy, he'd been able to break through at least once during the 50+ years from the 1st grade to the 6th grade. However, ever since he entered the academy, not only had he not broken through even once, the energy in his body had not increased at all. It was as if the energy in his body had been locked by invisible shackles. In the end, he simply gave up on himself and gave up on cultivating. Anyway, he was just muddling along and getting a graduation certificate. Now that he saw that Instructor Mo could actually help Mu Wanqing break through, it was obvious that he also had great hope. The other students also looked at Immortal. "Mentor Mo, please give me some advice." Mentor Mo, me too. Mentor Mo, I also haven't broken through for 2 days. Please give me some advice again. Get lost, you just broke through the day before yesterday. Why are you here? Mentor Su Mo can give you advice, but he can't give me advice. However, Immortal did not immediately agree to them. When it came to students, you couldn't always spoil them. You could do whatever they wanted. Then what would you do if they wanted to ride on your neck and poop in the future? Moreover, among these people, there was a guy with the spatial attribute and a guy with the metal attribute. At present, Immortal didn't know anything about the cultivation of space and metal attributes. Therefore he waved his hand. "I'm just your homeroom teacher, not your class instructor. Each attribute has its own instructor. You'd better learn from them." Hearing Immortal's words, the other students were all disappointed. Immortal continued. "However, it's not like you don't have a chance to receive my guidance." When the students heard this, they all raised their heads. Immortal continued. "Do you all know how to play war chess?" When the students heard this, they were all a little confused, but they all nodded. In the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, war chess was still relatively popular. These students more or less knew a little. Immortal continued. "Your temperaments are too weak. Practicing war chess can hone your temperament. I'll give you 10 days to learn war chess from me. When your impetuous hearts slowly calm down, I'll give you some guidance in your cultivation." When the students heard this, they felt that it was strange. What did cultivation have to do with war chess? However, when they heard that they had a chance to receive Mentor Mo's guidance, they were all very excited. After all, it was very likely that they would have a chance to break through immediately. In fact, cultivation and war chess had nothing to do with each other. The reason why Immortal said that he would teach them 10 days of war chess had nothing to do with their temperament. According to the system's rules, no matter what he taught someone, as long as they reached 10 days, the system would recognize that person as Immortal's disciple. Therefore, Immortal would teach them 10 days of war chess first. When the time came, they would become Immortal's disciples. At that time, Immortal would have 20 disciples in one go. If he signed in again, he should be able to get some good stuff. It was said that he could also sign in for metal attribute and space attribute Dragon 9 transformations. This was Immortal's real plan. Therefore, for the next few days, Immortal really taught these students how to play war chess. Although the students' standards varied, no matter how good they were, they were not as good as Immerse. One had to know that he had once won the runner-up position in a chess competition organized by the city on Earth. Wasn't it easy to teach these students? These days the dean had been a little confused. Mentor Mo was able to control these students. This made him very satisfied. However, Mentor Mo didn't let these students learn cultivation and various theoretical knowledge from him. Instead he wanted them to learn war chess from him. This was a little too ridiculous. Even if it was to hone their temperament, this was still really incomprehensible. One had to know that every parent in the 6th grade graduating class hoped that their children could learn more in the academy, so they were very strict with them. If these students went back and said that they were learning war chess from their mentor every day, what would those guys think? Their parents would probably come to the academy soon. Chapter 595. In fact, the dean's worries were not without reason. Some parents of students came to the academy, and it was not just one but more than 10 parents. They came to the dean's office. Some were aggressive and some were frowning. They insisted on asking the dean for an explanation. "Dean, our child will graduate in 3 years. It was only 3 years. We all hope that he can learn more useful knowledge in the academy. But the new instructor only taught him how to play war chess? Isn't that too ridiculous? Dean, I don't know what kind of magic potion that instructor fed our child. He actually said that the instructor taught them war chess to hone their temperament. What's even more ridiculous is that the instructor can actually guide the students to break through immediately. Yes, since he can guide the students to break through immediately, why can't he guide our daughter? If he can't guide our child to break through, then please teach our child some useful things. Don't play so many tricks." The dean shook his head. "Everyone, our Cloud Sea Academy is a famous academy in the entire Cloud Sea planet. We have absolute credibility. In terms of teaching methods, every instructor has their own set of methods. The reason why instructor Mo let the students learn war chess is to hone their temperament. As for the breakthrough you mentioned, it's not nonsense. It's true. I'll show you a video and you'll understand." As he spoke, the dean played the video of Mo guiding Mu Wanqing to break through in 5 minutes. Those people were all shocked when they saw it. This is actually true? But this is just too unbelievable. Even if I see it with my own eyes, I still can't believe it. Dean, I'm not doubting you, but this is too unbelievable. Could it be that this video is photoshopped? The parent who spoke regretted it as soon as he spoke. The instructors of Cloud Sea Academy had an extremely high social status on Cloud Sea Planet. Especially the dean of Cloud Sea Academy. It was said that he was a super evolved dragon. He was a big shot. Would he be angry with him for speaking to him like that? The dean shook his head and said, "I've asked Instructor Mo. I've also asked Teacher Mo. He also said that after 10 days, if the child's temperament has been tempered to a certain level, he will guide that student. As for whether or not the other child would be able to break through, I was also looking forward to it. If any of you still have any doubts, you can come to me when the time comes. We'll know when we have a look." When the parents heard this, they looked at each other. Although they still found it hard to believe, they couldn't say anything else since the dean had already said so. In the end, they all nodded in agreement. Then let's wait and see if they can make a breakthrough in 10 days. Today was Immerse's 10th day as an instructor. These 20 students were officially recognized by the system as Immerse's disciples. That night, Immerse said in his mind, "System, accepting 20 disciples can be considered a special event. Sign in for a special event." The system's voice sounded frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in event, 20 new disciples. Sign in reward, Void Dragon 9 transformation skill and technique, Golden Dragon 9 transformation skill and technique. Immerse was overjoyed. His guess was right. The system had indeed given him these 2 rewards. He immediately entered the space and learned the skills and techniques of the Void Dragon 9 transformations and the Golden Dragon 9 transformations. He had already mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the spatial and metal attributes. In this way, Immerse had completely mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. At the same time, he had also mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the 3 special attributes: thunder, poison, and space. He had mastered all the theoretical knowledge of 8 attributes. This was definitely an unprecedented existence in the history of the entire Myriad Dragon Star Zone. In the history of the entire Flaming Origin continent, the one who had mastered the most was a giant dragon known as the King of Chaos. That was a peerless genius. He was born with 2 types of elemental energy. Later his dragon bloodline mutated twice, allowing him to possess 4 types of elemental energy. Finally, he had a fortuitous encounter and possessed all the 5 elemental energies. Because of this, he spent a lot of effort to study all the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements. He became a master of the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements. After him, no other giant dragon had mastered more than 4 types of elemental theoretical knowledge. After all, the dragon race had been passed down for millions of years. The theoretical knowledge of each attribute had accumulated to an unimaginable level. It was extremely time-consuming to completely master a single attribute. If you spent all your time on theoretical knowledge, would you still be able to cultivate? But now, Immorse had mastered the theoretical knowledge of 8 attributes. Moreover, this knowledge was richer and more mature than any theoretical knowledge in the world. This was something that these giant dragons could not even imagine. The next day, before Immorse arrived at the academy, more than 10 parents had already gathered in the dean's office. Now that 10 days had passed, they wanted to see what kind of ability this teacher who only taught their children war chess all day had. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Immorse entered the academy on time. He let out a long yawn. Last night he played very late with Happy again. According to his habit, he would sleep until 11 or 12 o'clock before waking up. But after all, he was a teacher now and had to be a role model. Therefore he got up early and did not eat breakfast. Only then did he enter the classroom on time. As he looked at the podium, he shook his head secretly. It seemed that he had to control himself when he played in the future. In the dean's office, all the parents' gazes fell on Immorse. In class 6-1, all the students' gazes also fell on Immorse. Immorse knew what they were waiting for. He nodded and said, "In the past 10 days I've been very satisfied with your performance in war chess. So I've decided that all of you can receive my guidance today." Wow. That's great. Really? The students immediately burst into an uproar. Immorse glanced at the students, and the boiling students quickly suppressed their excitement. They were afraid that if they did not perform well, the teacher would take back what he had just said. Immorse pointed at a thin boy and said, "Golden Sword, try to cultivate for me to see." Golden Sword nodded. His eyes were full of sharpness. He was already a 5th-level evolved giant dragon, the one with the highest level in this class. After he finished cultivating, Immorse shook his head and said, "Don't worry. When you run the 7th cycle after the energy flows through the Silong acupoint, don't go through the Earth Dragon acupoint. Instead, go through the Dragon Spine acupoint first and then go through the Sky Dragon acupoint. Nothing else changes." In the dean's office, Golden Sword's father suddenly became anxious. Chapter 596. Xianxia's father panicked when he heard Immorse's instructions. "Dean, stop him. You should know that our golden dragon's energy is very sharp, and the heavenly dragon's cave is very fragile. If we go through the heavenly dragon's cave, we might break it. If that happens, my son will be crippled. None of our metal-type dragons have ever gone through the heavenly dragon's cave." The other parents' expressions changed when they heard that. "Stop him. Dean, does he know how to teach?" It's too late. Seeing that the parents were about to explode, the dean released Long Wei from his body. He was a super-evolved giant dragon. His Long Wei was not something these parents could bear. A chill rose from the bottom of these parents' hearts. They instantly quieted down. Actually, as the head of the school, the dean should not have used Long Wei on the parents. However, if he did not use Long Wei now, these parents were about to explode. In the 6th grade classroom, when Xianxia heard Immorse's words, he was still a little confused. However, when he thought about how Mu Wanqing was in the same situation when she broke through, he immediately felt confident. According to Immorse, after the 7th cycle of energy, they should not go through the heavenly dragon's cave. Instead, they should go through the Dragon Spine cave first and then the heavenly dragon's cave. The next moment, Xianxia's expression changed drastically, and his body trembled violently. Immorse's right index finger pressed directly on the heavenly dragon's cave on top of his head. After a while, large beads of sweat dripped down from Xianxia's head. Immorse was relieved. Xianxia's breakthrough had failed. Not only did it fail, but when the energy was in the Heavenly Dragon's cave, the Heavenly Dragon's cave was almost crippled by the sharp metal-type energy. When the students saw this scene, they were all shocked. In the dean's office, the dean frowned. He wanted these parents to watch Teacher Mo's performance, but it turned out to be a slap in the face. How the hell was he going to explain this? He glanced at the parents. Sure enough, their expressions all changed. Although they were suppressed by their long way and did not dare to say anything, they were furious. However, Immorse soon gave an explanation. He shook his head and said, Xianxia, why did you hesitate when you were attacking the Heavenly Dragon Cave? Xianxia's eyes were no longer as sharp as before. He said, I've never been to the Dragon Spine Cave before, especially the Heavenly Dragon Cave. Since I was young, all the seniors have told me that the sword chi of the metal element should never go through the Heavenly Dragon Cave. Otherwise, at the very least, his acupoints would be crippled. At the very least, all the meridians in his body would be broken and he would never be able to recover. So I hesitated. Immorse shook his head. It's because you hesitated that you missed the best time. You all think that the Dragon Spine acupoint is a useless acupoint and is completely useless in cultivation. Actually, let me tell you, the Longji acupoint is the most useful of all the acupoints. Its function was to stimulate other acupoints. When the energy passes through the Longji acupoint at a specific time, it can stimulate different acupoints. After 7 cycles, you'll have to go through the Longji acupoint to stimulate the Tianlong acupoint. After the Heavenly Dragon acupoint was stimulated, its flexibility and strength were greatly enhanced. It was completely capable of withstanding the sharp metal energy. But this time was very short, only an instant. You hesitated just now and missed the best opportunity. As the saying goes, if you're sincere, it'll work. Since you're not sincere, you can retreat. Hearing this, Xianxia immediately said in fear, Mentor, I won't hesitate anymore. I'll definitely break through this time. Immorse waved his hand and said to everyone, Mu Wanqing, if you're sincere, break through immediately. Xianxia, if you're not sincere, you won't be able to break through. Instead, you'll almost go crazy. You'll have to think about how to choose. The students looked at each other. Finally, their gazes fell on Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing felt everyone's gaze and her cheeks immediately turned red. Her head could be buried under the table. Finally, a student with the fire element stepped forward. Mentor, let me do it. Immorse nodded. Begin. That student practiced it once. Immorse gave a few simple instructions. The student followed Immorse's instructions and practiced again. 5 minutes later, a stream of air suddenly came out of his body and rushed in all directions. Fortunately, Immorse was prepared. He condensed an energy shield and covered him, shielding him from the shockwave when he broke through. All the students were pleasantly surprised when they saw this. He really broke through. As long as we follow the mentor's instructions and don't hesitate, we'll definitely break through. Originally, we had to cultivate for decades or even hundreds of years, but with the mentor's guidance, we broke through in 5 minutes. It's too scary. In the dean's office, the dean was relieved when he saw Immorse guiding the students to break through immediately again. He looked at the parents again and saw that their eyes were also full of shock. The dean took back Longwei and said to the parents, I'm sorry. I had to do that just now. However, the parents didn't take the fact that the dean used Longwei to suppress them. Because at this time they were all shocked by what they saw just now. And this is true. With some guidance, she broke through immediately in 5 minutes. My son didn't lie to me. Dean quickly let him guide my daughter. My daughter hasn't broken through for 30 years. Only Xianxia's father hated that he couldn't go up and give his son 2 tight slaps when he saw this. Of all people to suspect, he had to suspect Mentor Mo. Now Mentor Mo won't let you break through. What should you do? Just tell me what you should do. Next, Immorse guided the students one by one. Those students broke through immediately one after another. In the end, only 2 people were left. One was Xianxia, the other was Tuqing. Xianxia's father was so anxious that his head was full of sweat. Dean, please talk to Mentor Mo. I'll do whatever you want. As long as he agrees to let my son break through, I'll pay any price. The dean chuckled and said, Don't worry, Mentor Su is just teaching Xianxia a lesson. In fact, he still values your son very much. Otherwise, why would he ask your son to break through first? Xianxia's father was slightly relieved when he heard this. In fact, the reason why Immorse asked Xianxia to break through first was that he had plundered the memories of all the students. He knew clearly what these students were thinking. Xianxia was the one who doubted him the most among all the students. He originally planned to ask Xianxia to come out and set a negative example to make an example out of him. He didn't expect Xianxia to come out by himself and hit the muzzle of the gun. At this time Immorse looked at Tuqing. Then he looked at Xianxia. He said, "Xianxia, I'll give you 3 days to reflect." Yes. Chapter 597. This time Golden Sword did not dare to hesitate anymore. He did not dare to have any doubts about Immorse's orders. When he saw the other students breaking through under the guidance of the teachers, he had already made up his mind. From now on he would not have the slightest doubt about any of the teachers' words. When the teachers, including the dean, saw that Immorse had grasped almost all the attributes' knowledge, they could not help but open their eyes wide. How many attributes has Teacher Immorse grasped? It's simply unbelievable. There are 20 students in this class and they all know the metal, wood, water, fire and earth attributes. Just now there was also an ice and space attributes. It's already very dangerous to know all the 5 elements, but he even grasped the ice and space attributes, these rare attributes' knowledge. This is simply unimaginable. The dean was also dumbfounded. These parents only knew that Immorse had grasped 7 attributes. But the dean knew that other than these attributes, Immorse had also grasped the lightning attribute knowledge. At this moment he no longer doubted that Immorse had grasped almost all the attributes' theoretical knowledge. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, lightning, wind, poison, time and space. One person grasped so many attributes' knowledge. How did this guy learn? Could it be that he did not cultivate? Did he use all his time to study theoretical knowledge? But before he only used long way to suppress so many students. This means that he is very likely a super-evolved giant dragon. In other words, the amount of time he had to cultivate was definitely not little, even more than an ordinary giant dragon. Then how did he grasp all this knowledge? Could it be that he is a time attribute giant dragon? But the time attribute is extremely rare. Currently, in the entire 10,000 dragon star field, there are less than 10 people with the time attribute. Every time attribute giant dragon would be roped in by those big forces. How could he come to the small Cloud Sea planet and teach in the Cloud Sea Academy? It seems that I have to find Teacher Immorse to understand all of this. At this moment, Immorse continued to speak to Golden Sword. 3 days later I will see your performance. Yes. Golden Sword said again. Then Immorse looked at the tall and mighty Tuqing. This guy is almost 2 sizes bigger than me. According to Immorse's understanding, before Tuqing entered the academy, he was an absolute genius there. However, ever since it had evolved into a rank 1 colossal dragon and entered the Ocean of Clouds Academy, it hadn't advanced another rank. And because he was too tall, he was at least 2 meters tall. His movements seemed to be somewhat inconvenient. Because of these 2 reasons, many people rolled their eyes and mocked him. At the beginning, Tuqing Earth City also felt inferior for a while. But later on he gradually became thick-skinned. He began to give up on himself and went all out. Thus he did not cultivate much. He could be said to be the most useless student in the entire academy. He looked tall and strong, but in fact, any random student in the academy would be able to beat him to a pulp. At this time Tuqing Earth City's eyes, which have not appeared in brilliance for decades, are full of eager eyes. Instructor Immorse, it's my turn. It's my turn. Immorse nodded and turned to the rest of the students. Today's class has been going on for half a day. You should all rest. As for Tuqing Earth City, come with me. As he spoke, his mind flickered. The 2 of them instantly disappeared from the classroom. The surrounding students thought that they had teleported nearby. However, through exploration they found that the instructor and Tuqing Earth City were not nearby, not even in the academy. Tuqing Earth City's father saw this scene and asked the dean in surprise, "Dean, this?" The dean smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry, Instructor Immorse just took Tuqing Earth City to a place." As soon as the voice fell, Immorse and Tuqing Earth City reappeared in the place where they had just disappeared. At this time, Tuqing Earth City did not have the previous decadence and self-abandonment look. Instead he had a confident smile on his face. He disappeared for less than 3 seconds. How could he suddenly change into another person? Tuqing Earth City's father's eyes were wide open. He even wondered if Instructor Mo had stuffed other people's souls into his son's body. Teaching Earth City, get ready today. From tomorrow onwards you will practice according to my method. Yes. Teaching Earth City's face was full of smiles and gratitude. All the students in the classroom and the parents in the dean's office were dumbfounded. Where did they go in the last 3 seconds? What did Instructor Mo say to Teaching Earth City? In fact, within 3 seconds, Mo sure took Teaching Earth City to the Earth space. The scene replayed. In the Earth space, Mo sure and Teaching Earth City suddenly appeared. Teaching Earth City looked at the completely unfamiliar planet and asked, Instructor, where is this? Mo sure said, this is a planet. Teaching Earth City asked, Instructor, why did you bring me here? Mo sure, you don't have to cultivate. Even if you cultivate until you die, you won't be able to advance another level. Teaching Earth City. Instructor, I know my talent is poor, but it shouldn't be so bad, right? Mo sure, your talent is not bad. Being able to enter the Cloud Sea Academy shows that your talent is much better than the average giant dragon. Then, why have all my classmates advanced in the past few decades, but I'm still in the same place? Not to mention that I didn't advance, my energy didn't even increase by a bit. My dad and those instructors have thought of many ways, but it didn't work. Mo sure said, because you have a planetary body. After a planetary body evolves to a level 1 dragon, the realm will no longer advance. Teaching Earth City's eyes widened. A planetary body? You mean a terrifying existence that can eventually turn the body into an entire planet? Isn't that just a legend? Mo sure, many legends are true. From the first time he saw Teaching Earth City, the eye of the demon dragon let him know that this guy was an incredible planetary body. Teaching Earth City then asked, but according to legend, a planetary body depends on perception to continue to grow stronger. And in the millions of years of the giant dragon's history, there have been more than 10,000 planetary bodies, but only one giant dragon has achieved a true planetary body. The success rate is so low that it makes the dragon's hair stand on end. Mo sure nodded. That's because they didn't realize anything at the end of their lives. Teaching Earth City's expression dimmed. Instructor, do you think someone as stupid as me will realize it before the end of their lives? Mo sure said, with my method even an idiot will be able to comprehend it in the end. Teaching Earth City heard this and immediately became excited. Really? The next moment, Mo sure's mind moved. Teaching Earth City's entire body began to expand rapidly. Slowly, it turned into a boulder, a mountain range until it became an entire planet. At this time, Teaching Earth City was the planet and the planet was Teaching Earth City. Mo sure said to the huge planet that had just appeared above Earth, now that you're a planet, feel it carefully. After saying that, he sped up the time again. In just a short moment, it was as if tens of billions of years had passed. Tens of billions of years was enough for a planet to slowly take shape from nothing. What Mo sure wanted was for Teaching Earth City to slowly feel this process. Chapter 598. From an outsider's perspective, Mo sure and Teaching only disappeared for 3 seconds. But in reality, after Mo sure brought him to Earth, he sped up the passage of time in Earth's space. 3 seconds is equivalent to 10 billion years. Some say this is too exaggerated. Come on, Mo sure is the god here. Here he is the omniscient and omnipotent creator. There is nothing he can't do. In this accelerated time of 10 billion years, Teaching has been feeling the changes in his body. He seems to have understood something. Then Mo sure stuffed Teaching into Earth's core with another thought. Letting him stay inside for 10 billion years, letting him keep feeling. After 10 billion years, Teaching's eyes lit up as soon as he came out. Mentor, I've realized something. Mo sure said, using my method even a fool can realize it, am I right? Teaching nodded excitedly. Then his entire body began to change rapidly. He directly revealed his dragon body. The 1,000-meter-long dragon body began to change. The color of the scales on it was constantly changing. It slowly turned into the color of a stone. His entire body was like a boulder that hasn't moved for thousands of years. The spikes on his back were also constantly changing. They looked like trees that had grown out of a boulder thousands of years ago. Mo sure tried to attack a few times, then nodded and said, Not bad. The current you can withstand the attacks of a 7th order evolved dragon at most. When you turn into a stone form, dragons below the 7th order can't do anything to you, including 7th order. Tuching was suddenly overjoyed. Previously he was only a rank 1 evolved giant dragon. Dragons below the 1st order could bully him. He didn't expect that dragons below the 7th order couldn't do anything to him. This change was so great that it was shocking. Immorse continued, "From now on, I will take you to experience the growth of a planet every day. I believe that it won't be long before your strength will far surpass others," Tuching hurriedly said. "Thank you, Mentor." Finally he asked another question. "Mentor, where is this place?" "An illusion I created," Immorse said. Tuching Earth City was very surprised. Could a teacher create such a realistic illusion? It was said that some giant dragons could create illusions, but those illusions always had some flaws and weren't too realistic. Only those extremely powerful super-evolved dragons could create illusions that could not be seen through. Could it be that tutor had already become a super-evolved dragon? Thinking of this, he looked at his mentor in surprise. However, Immorse had already brought him back to the classroom with a single thought. Then he said to Tuching Earth City, "It's best not to mention this to anyone." Tuching Earth City also replied, "Don't worry, teacher. I'm not stupid enough to ruin my future with my own hands." He knew that only Immorse could bring him into that illusory realm. In that illusion, Immorse could speed up the passage of time, allowing him to feel the growth of a planet in a very short period of time. If he told the others and angered the tutor, he would be the only one who would suffer. In the dean's office, Tuching Earth City's father saw that everyone else had broken through, only his son had not broken through. He couldn't help but feel anxious. But the expression on his son's face suddenly changed. He was no longer as decadent as before, but full of confidence and gratitude to Immorse. He knew that something must have happened in between. So after school he went to find his son. On the way home with his son he asked, "You didn't break through?" Tuching Earth City shook his head. "No breakthrough in level. But under the guidance of my mentor, my strength has improved by leaps and bounds." Father Tuching Earth frowned slightly. "Everyone else has broken through, only you haven't. Even if your strength has improved by leaps and bounds, how strong can it be?" Tuching Earth City said, "So strong that I can use my body to withstand the attack of any giant dragon below the 7th order." Tuching Earth City's father suddenly stopped in his tracks. He turned to look at his son. He wanted to see if his son was exaggerating. However, from his son's eyes and face he could not see any evasiveness. In other words, his son was telling the truth. He couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. That mentor Immo was so amazing. Just 3 seconds of guidance, and his son's strength suddenly became strong enough to withstand the attack of a 7th order evolved giant dragon with his body? This was more awesome than taking drugs. "Tell me, what the hell is going on?" Tuching Earth City shook his head. The mentor said, "Let me not talk to others." "But since when did your father become an outsider?" Father Tuching Earth was so anxious that he directly burst out swearing. Tuching Earth City was still very firm. "If I tell others casually and annoy the mentor, he will never teach me again." When Tuching Earth City said this, Father Tuching Earth could only shake his head helplessly. "Okay, I won't ask. But then again, what's the matter with the planetary body?" Tuching Earth City said, "It's talking about my physique. I have a planetary body, so it's useless to cultivate again. But with the mentor's method I can even turn my body into a planet in the future. My defense is also at the planetary level." Tuching Earth City's father wondered, "Planetary body?" It's said that it's a genius body that may only appear once in 100 years. In fact, the success rate is very low. At most, only 1 in 10,000 planetary bodies can eventually achieve a planetary body. So this planetary body is also called a waste body. Tuching Earth City's eyes were full of confidence. "Dad, you can rest assured. With the mentor, I have absolute confidence that before graduation I can reach the level where I can use my body to withstand the attack of a 10th order evolved dragon." Hiss. Father Tuching Earth took a breath of cold air. If that's the case, his son is equivalent to being invincible below the 10th order evolved dragon. Then the future of his Tuching Earth family is promising. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but secretly look forward to it. He said, "Your mentor is a really capable person. You have to have a good attitude in front of him in the future. Don't be like before." You always cause me trouble for no reason. Don't worry, Dad. With such a mentor around, if I don't seize the time and make good use of the time before graduation, then I'm a fool. Father Tuchingearth saw that his son finally knew how to make progress, and his eyes couldn't help but be slightly hot. After his son found that he had not broken through in the past 3 years, he gradually became decadent. He had been decadent until now. He could only comfort himself that his son came to the college to get a graduation certificate. He never expected that this new mentor would bring such a huge change to his son. Chapter 599. Immorse used one class to conquer all the students. Apart from Earth City and Golden Sword, all the students advanced by 1 level. However, it was far from enough to advance by 1 level. Their combat strength did not increase significantly. So Immorse applied to the school to take these students out for training. Every homeroom teacher and mentor had a chance to take the students out for training every semester. The previous homeroom teacher, Jean Pontu, had not taken the students out for training this semester. On Earth, when the teachers took the students out, they were all trembling with fear. Some were afraid of danger and some were afraid of accidents. If something happened, they would not be able to explain it to their parents. However, in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, the giant dragons' physiques were extremely strong. As long as they were not killed on the spot, even if they were seriously injured, they could usually recover in a short time. Therefore, the teachers were free to bring the students out for training. Before leaving, the dean designated an area for Immorse. This is the Misty Mountains. You can train in the southern area of the mountains. The star beasts here are around 100 to 150 years old. The northern part of the Misty Mountains is shrouded in thick fog all year round. Moreover, the mountains are high and the forests are dense. It has become the hiding place of many dragon bandits. It is said that there are as many as 600 to 700 dragon bandits in the Misty Mountains. Therefore you must not go there. The dean knew that Immorse was very likely a super-evolved giant dragon and was not afraid of these dragon bandits at all. However, he still had to give the necessary instructions. Hearing the dean's words, Immorse could not help but be secretly happy. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known. Since you said so, I naturally have to go. The next morning, Immorse took the students and set off for the Misty Mountains. When the students heard that they were going out for training, they were all very excited. They looked forward to going out for training every semester. However, when they reached the forest in the southern part of the Misty Mountains, Immorse quickly made them realize the reality. All of them could not even deal with a small 100-year star beast cub. This was simply King useless. What have you been doing for the past 50 years? Immorse was slightly angry. The students looked ashamed. Instructor, when Instructor Jean brought us out for training, we always worked together to kill star beast cubs. We have never fought a star beast cub alone before. Immorse couldn't help but chuckle. You're about to graduate. After graduation, unless you join the army, you won't have many opportunities to gather together. Could it be that at that time when you saw the star beast cubs, you could only run away? You guys think that it's easy for you to find a job after graduating from a famous school. But you never know which comes first, tomorrow or the accident. What if you encounter a baby star beast when you're alone? Even if you go to the army, it will be 1,000 times crueler than here. People like you won't even be able to clean the toilet bowl. After being scolded by Immorse, the students all lowered their heads, not daring to say a word. Even the naughtiest students in the class were stunned by Immorse's scolding. Next, Immorse repeated the training he did for Lei Ren. These students first fought a 100-year-old star beast cub alone. Immorse not only taught them how to exert force, but also how to condense energy in any part of their body. After a short 3 days, these students were already able to deal with 100-year-old star beast cubs. After 10 years, they could deal with 110-year-old star beast. Then it was 120-year-old star beasts, 130-year-old star beast. In the end, no matter their level, almost every student could deal with a star beast cub that was 1 level higher than them. After that, Immorse imparted the various 9 dragon transformations that he had learned before to them. Of course, Immorse only imparted the first and second transformations to them. Just to master the first and second transformations would take a few months. As for the third transformation and beyond, it was purely up to luck. After spending 1.5 months to master the first 2 transformations of these dragons, Every student could rely on these two transformations to fight against star beasts that were at least 5 levels above them. Some were even able to fight star beasts that were at least 160, 70, 80, and even 80 to 90 years old. If converted to the level of giant dragons, they could basically deal with evolved giant dragons that were at least 6 levels higher than them. And among these students, the one who performed the most outstanding was Zhou Xian. Because he was not sincere before, Immorse told him to break through in 3 days. From then on, he did not hesitate to follow Immorse's orders. After 3 days, Immorse told him to start breaking through. As a result, this guy broke through by 2 levels. He jumped from level 4 to level 6 evolved giant dragon. This made the students in the class so shocked that their jaws almost fell to the ground. Every level of a giant dragon's breakthrough was very difficult. At their level, it was considered fast to break through one level in 100 years. The mentor took them to break through in 5 minutes, which was enough to shock everyone. As a result, Zhou Xian, this guy actually broke through 2 levels in 10 minutes. It was really too shocking. Now, Zhou Xian was one of the 2 students with the highest level in the entire class. And his metal attribute energy was extremely sharp. When he learned to attach metal attribute energy to every part of his body, it was as if every part of his body was equipped with extremely sharp blades. Every move could cut through gold and stone. The only person in the class who did not break through was Earth City. When the mentor taught everyone in the class all kinds of 9 dragon transformations, the only person who did not teach was Earth City. But Earth City did not seem to be disappointed. On the contrary, he was always happy. When the students saw this, they all secretly pitied Earth City. He had been left far behind by the other students and could not make the slightest progress. On the surface, he looked indifferent, but in fact his heart must be very uncomfortable. How could they know that the current Earth City, after a month and a half in Immerse's space on Earth, had also improved at a rapid pace? Before, he could only turn into a boulder. But now, Earth City could directly turn into a mountain that was 10,000 meters tall. What was the use of this mountain? It fell directly from the sky and hit you. Would you be afraid? As for the defense, there was nothing to say. This mountain was not like an ordinary mountain that could be easily knocked down by evolved giant dragons. This mountain was extremely tough. It would be extremely difficult to knock down this mountain if one was not a super evolved dragon. In fact, in terms of strength, Earth City was already the strongest among all the students. These students were just fooling around. Under Earth City's attack, destroying a city would not be a problem. However, Immorse did not let Earth City take action for the time being. If he took action, the others would not have to gain experience. If a mountain came down, those star beast cubs would all be crushed into meat paste and they would gain experience. Chapter 600. After 2 months of training, the students had mastered all kinds of 9 dragon transformations. Now almost every student could use all kinds of 9 dragon transformations to defeat opponents that were at least 4 ranks higher. Some of the stronger and sharper attributes, such as Golden Sword, could already be invincible against those below the super evolved giant dragon. At this time, there were only 5 days left until the graduation exam. The dean had already contacted Immorse and asked him to bring the students back to the academy as soon as possible. Immorse agreed. Then he said to the students, "Since you're almost done with your training, I'll bring you to do something big today." The students didn't know what Immorse meant, but they were all very excited. In the past 2 months, each of them could kill star beast cubs that were above their ranks. He had even hunted and killed a 200-year-old star beast cub. In their opinion, this was already quite an achievement. They didn't expect that in the eyes of their teacher this was nothing. They were going to do something big next. Did he want them to kill star beast cubs that were more than 200 years old? What a joke, that was an existence equivalent to a super-evolved giant dragon. If they went up, wouldn't they be looking for trouble? But it didn't matter with their teacher beside them. What did they not dare to do? Although until now they hadn't seen their teacher in action. But they knew that their teacher's strength was definitely that of a super-evolved giant dragon. After all, their teacher had taught them for 2 months, and each of them could defeat enemies that were 4 or 5 ranks higher. Golden Sword was invincible against those below the super-evolved giant dragon. If someone said that their teacher's strength had not reached that of a super-evolved giant dragon, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. When they thought that their teacher was actually a super-evolved giant dragon, these students were very proud. One had to know that in the entire Cloud Sea Star, there were probably only about 10,000 people who had reached the super-evolved giant dragon level. If they knew that their teacher was not only a super-evolved giant dragon, but also the only level 5 super-evolved giant dragon on the entire planet, who knew how they would feel. Soon, Immerse led the 20 students through the entire southern part of the Misty Mountains. They arrived at the ridge of the mountain. Looking from the ridge to both sides, one could see two completely different styles. The southern part of the mountain range was full of green vegetation and lush trees. A wide river, like a silver jade belt under the sun, floated into the distance. The northern part was completely shrouded in fog. It was impossible to see what was inside. Even if these students used their evolved dragon senses, they couldn't find out what was going on inside. Only Immerse's draconic will could penetrate the mist and see what was inside. One of the students asked, "Instructor, it is said that there are many dragon bandits' lairs in the fog north of the Fog Mountains. Are we still going?" The rest of the students also looked at Immerse. The dragon bandits were all outlaws. They didn't care about morals or laws. They only cared about killing dragons to steal their goods and steal their treasures. Immerse smiled. "The reason I brought you here today is to suppress the bandits." All the students were stunned. "Instructor, are you sure you're not mistaken? The government has been suppressing it for so many years, but to no avail. Now that you've brought 20 students, you want to suppress the bandits? Wasn't this a little too exaggerated?" Immerse laughed. "What? You don't dare?" After all, these students were still young and full of vigor. How could they withstand such provocation? Why not? Every one of us can challenge someone 5 levels above us. Golden Sword is invincible below super-evolved dragons. What do we have to be afraid of? Actually, there was an important reason that they didn't mention. With a super-evolved dragon teacher by their side, what were they afraid of? However, just as they thought of this, Immerse shattered their fantasy. "Each of you is stronger than those dragon bandits individually. So I won't take part in suppressing the bandits this time. At most, I'll give you some ideas and guide you from the side. As for whether you'll take care of the dragon bandits or the dragon bandits will take you in, it will depend on your skills." The students were all a little nervous but also a little excited. They had killed many baby star beasts, but they hadn't killed a dragon yet. Immerse said, "Follow closely." As he spoke, he flew forward. The group of students behind him hurriedly followed behind. They could only see about 10 meters from here. Even with their perception, they could only see about 100 meters. If they were not careful, they might lose him. Half an hour later, they arrived at the bottom of a cliff. There was a cave under the cliff. According to Immerse's detection, there were about 40 dragon bandits inside. But he didn't intend to tell the students the exact number. Otherwise, without a rank 10 long yen by their side in the future, would they stop suppressing bandits? Immerse said, "The dragon bandits are all valiant and ruthless. They don't follow any rules. We haven't found out how many dragon bandits there are in the cave. You can use 3 to 5 people to lure out some of them. After killing them, immediately retreat. Pay attention to the 2 survivors. Interrogate them separately and see how many dragon bandits there are. If they say the number is about the same, it's true. If the number is wrong, it must be a lie. After killing them, there will definitely be more dragon bandits coming out to investigate. When the time comes, we'll act according to the situation." Yes. The students spoke one after another. At this moment, the class monitor Shui Bolin began to give orders. "Mu Wanqing, Kong Ming, Golden Sword, you 3 go to the entrance of the cave and challenge them. The rest of you lie in ambush. Teaching you're the weakest. Hide in the distance. When the battle is about to start, cast an earth element energy shield on each of us. During the battle, see if anyone's shield is broken and immediately mend it. At the same time, pay attention to your own safety. During the battle, no one has time to protect you." The students all agreed. Teaching looked at Immerse. Immerse transmitted his voice to him. "Do as she says first." Teaching nodded. Then he went to find a place to hide more than 50 meters behind. In fact, 50 meters was not a distance at all for a giant dragon. But there was no other way. There was fog everywhere. They had to rely on their perception to distinguish more than 50 meters. If it was any further, even their perception could not see it. As for Mo, sure, he could not only see it with his dragon consciousness and his demon dragon's eye, could also easily see everything in this fog. So it could be said that everything was under his control. At this moment, the rest of the students were hiding more than 20 meters away. Kong Ming, Golden Sword, and Mu Wanqing went to challenge them. Mu Wanqing was a little timid. He walked at the back. Golden Sword had a metallic sword aura and was very sharp. He took the lead and came to a place only 10 meters away from the stone cave door. He shouted, "The dragon bandits inside, listen up. Come out immediately and die." A moment later, he saw a dragon bandit inside poking his head out. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.